When men say this, they're always lying. And if you don't believe me, then unfortunately the lie is working on you. I'm sure you're thinking it's impossible that it's always a lie, because maybe 1 out of 10 times it's actually true. And that's why context is the most important part of knowing when it's really a lie, which is exactly what I'm gonna break down for you in this video. Not only are we gonna go through the exact phrases men use whenever they're lying, but we're gonna take a deep dive into the context of when that lie comes, as well as the deeper motivation behind telling that specific lie in the first place. By the end of this video, you'll be so good at spotting men's lies, you'll have them wondering who gave you all the secrets. Our first phrase is an extremely common lie. It's when a man tells you, "I'm not sure what I want." Now, I know for a fact when men see this, they're gonna tell you, "Oh, he's wrong. He has no idea what he's talking about. I'm just really, honestly unsure of what I want." Let me tell you why in this specific context, it's always a lie. Let's say you're frustrated with the lack of progress in the relationship you're having with a specific guy. For whatever reason, he doesn't seem to completely be sure that he wants to 100% commit to pursuing a long-term serious relationship with you. So in your frustration, you start questioning him, asking him, why is it that you're so unwilling to commit to the idea of pursuing a serious relationship? And then his response is, because I'm not sure of what I want. Anytime a man is unsure about you or what he wants to be doing with you, that is the clearest sign that he does not want to be with you. And I know the first time you're hearing that, it doesn't feel like it really makes sense, because your natural instinct is to believe that this is just about him figuring things out. But I'm about to change the way you view this concept forever. When men know they want to be with you, they will take action. When men know they do not want to be with you, they will not take action. Interestingly though, when men are unsure about whether or not they want to be with you, they also do not take action. So when you think about it like that, the question of whether or not he wants to be with you is not on a weighted scale where it can be yes and kind of also no at the same time. Whether or not he wants to be with you is like a light switch. It's either on or it's off, which means that when he tells you, "I'm not sure what I want" in this specific context, it's always a lie, because what he really just said is, "I do not want you, because if I truly wanted you, I would be sure of it." And I know some of you are still wondering what could possibly be the motivation behind this lie. Well, it's to make you feel hope. Hope that one day "I'm not sure" will eventually turn into "I'm sure of what I want, and I know that I want you." The reality of it is though, men don't work how women do. We don't meet women and then warm up to the idea of being in a relationship with them. We decide that we want to be in a relationship, and then we go out and we find that woman that fits the criteria of what we're looking for. The next phrase a man will use when he's always lying is, "I don't like to talk about the past." Now, the specific context you need to understand to know that this is a lie comes in the response he gives you when you ask these questions. Specifically questions that have to either do with his most recent ex-girlfriend or general questions about his previous relationships. So let's say you're on a date with a guy and you get on the topic of past relationships, and because you're a curious person, you decide to ask him, what was the reason your most recent relationship ended? And he responds with, "I don't like talking about the past." Here's where it gets tricky though. A lot of times guys will add sauce to this and make it sound like it's a good thing. They'll say, "Well, I don't like talking about the past because I just want to focus all of my energy on you and what we have going on in the present." And see, this is where things get tricky, because that addition is meant to do something to you emotionally. It's meant to make you feel like, oh, why would he want to put all of his attention on those exes? They don't matter. They're irrelevant. He's right. Then you start thinking to yourself, why am I asking questions about these irrelevant girls from his past? I'm his future and I'm his present. I'm here right now and I'm all that matters. And the craziest part is when you start feeling that way, you've already fallen for the exact trap that he's trying to set up for you. Because the reason men lie about this in this specific context is because they want you to believe that the past is a bad thing to discuss. Why? Because they know if they begin discussing with you their previous relationships in too much detail, it will clue you in to what type of man he actually is and will likely be in his relationship with you now. And if he knows that he's a cheater, for example, or a manipulator or an abuser, he will keep stories of his previous relationships away from you as much as possible so that you don't get a head start in learning what type of man he is until he gets the chance to make you experience those horrible character traits firsthand. Number one, because as long as you don't know it's coming, then you can't possibly prepare for it. And number two, it allows him to get access to you until you eventually go through your own individual process of getting sick of this pattern of behavior and then eventually ending the relationship. Because what he doesn't want is for you to hear all of the horrible things he did in his previous relationships. Then you realize that you don't want to go through the same things that all of his other exes went through and then cut him off before he gets an opportunity to sleep with you, get girlfriend treatment out of you, and the biggest key, get you to invest in him. Because if you were to notice very bad character traits at the beginning of the relationship, it's a lot easier to walk away from that guy. Whereas if you notice these bad character traits after a couple of months of being in a relationship with him, now all of a sudden it's a lot harder to walk away from the relationship, which is exactly what he wants. This next phrase is going to confuse you a lot, but I'll explain it in detail. When men say, "I don't like when girls wear makeup," they're lying in this specific context. Let's say you and your man are both getting ready to go out to dinner together. He walks into the bath. He looks at you with all of your makeup scattered all over the bathroom counter and watches you do your foundation, your contour, your highlight, even your setting spray. And then he says to you, "You know what? You don't really have to wear all that makeup. I honestly don't even like it when girls wear makeup. I'd much rather them just look natural." This is where things get very, very confusing because that statement is a positive statement. But unfortunately, this is one of those times where you can't really listen to what men say. You have to pay attention to what they actually respond to. And I'm going to explain to you why I never want you to take that statement to heart, because it's a lie. Most men don't really even have an understanding of what natural actually is. They scroll on Instagram for hours looking at pictures of Instagram models who post pictures that they want their audience to believe is them in their natural form. These men don't even understand that that's part of the illusion. They don't realize that the women that they are scrolling on Instagram liking their pictures are using Facetune or Photoshop, or at the very least, adjusting the angles and lightings to make themselves look better than they actually do naturally. So when his favorite Instagram model posts a picture of herself lying in bed with her hair in a messy bun, talking about just waking up, he actually believes that's her and how she looks when she's just getting out of bed. He then internalizes that and believes that he would rather have a woman who looks natural like that woman who just got out of bed than the woman in front of him in real life who's doing all of this sorcery to get her face looking amazing. Here's what we have to have a real conversation about, and I'm not trying to be rude, but men just don't know what they're talking about sometimes. And it's important for you to understand that, accept that, and absorb that so that you don't take everything he says to heart. Because when you believe this lie, that he doesn't like when you wear makeup and he just much rather you be natural, you think to yourself, okay, let me put less energy into my appearance. Maybe he genuinely is more attracted to how I naturally look. But then you quickly realize that as you put less energy into your appearance and you show up as more natural, he doesn't give you the response that you thought he would give you. Instead, the response you receive from him is when you put less energy into dolling yourself up for him, he makes a comment about the pimple on your forehead. Or when you go out to dinner, he mentions how you look really tired because you got bags under your eyes. And only then do you realize that this whole "I don't like when women wear makeup, I'd just rather them be natural" thing is just one big lie. Now, in this scenario, it's not always necessarily a malicious lie. In some cases, it's just a misguided lie. A lie that's rooted in a lack of understanding of what natural really is and what natural actually looks like. Because men don't realize that what they're actually attracted to when they see women is women who put effort into their appearance. But simultaneously, they also want women who put effort into their appearance while not appearing to put effort into their appearance. This is why you always hear me say, stop listening to what men say and start paying attention to what they actually respond to. This next phrase that men will say when they're lying is that you are the right person at the wrong time. Now, before you get all upset, I want to give you the context of when it's happening so that you know for sure that it's a lie. So let's say you've been dealing with a guy for the past 3 months. And in that past 3 months, things have been rocky, to say the least. There have been times where he just flat out ghosted you or has been inconsistent or not keeping his word. And you just can't understand why a guy who consistently says how much he wants to be with you can't seem to get his act together. So you're sitting with him in a car parking lot, crying your eyes out, telling him how much you're hurt by the way that he's been treating you these past 3 months. And you see him with his puppy dog face respond to you and say, well, you're the right woman for me, just not at the right time. Now, very important. Why is he saying this? Because he knows that will do something to you emotionally. He knows that saying that in this specific moment will feed a narrative that there's some sort of external force outside of the two of you that he can't control, which is preventing him from doing what he actually wants to do, which is be in a serious relationship with you. And the reason he wants to paint that narrative is because once he gets you to believe in that concept, then he gets to escape accountability for the way that he's treated you. Instead of it being his own fault or his own choice to be inconsistent in the relationship, it becomes the fault of whatever external source is the reason he's being inconsistent. For example, if he talks about being extremely stressed out and having a ton of work projects and things to do at work being the reason that he ghosted you, all of a sudden he gets to blame his behavior on work. Oh, he would have been a better partner to you if it wasn't for his job. And this is why this statement is 100% of the time a lie when he says it in this context. If you were truly the right woman for him, he would make sure that it's the right time. What I mean by that is men know how to make something work when they really want to make it work. We were created to be problem solvers, meaning when an obstacle gets in the way of a man's ability to be with a specific woman, if he truly desires that woman, he will figure out how to overcome that obstacle. If his desire is not truly there for that specific woman, he will not make an effort to overcome that obstacle. And in this specific scenario, he feels bad about the fact that he knows he's not willing to overcome that obstacle. And because he feels bad about not having the desire to overcome that obstacle, he paints a picture as if that obstacle is so overwhelming. He could never overcome it even if he wanted to. And now all of a sudden, you go from being upset at him to feeling sorry for the fact that this obstacle was just so overwhelming. He couldn't possibly do anything about it. He's literally curated an environment where you feel sorry for his bad actions, and he puts you in a position mentally where you take his side against the evil obstacle that is getting in the way of your ability to be in a romantic relationship with this guy. Now, all of a sudden, you've forgiven his inconsistency, and once you agree with this idea, you've given him a license to continue being inconsistent and using the same excuse as to why he can't be a better partner to you. This next phrase, I'm almost 100% certain you've either heard it before or will hear it at some point, so prepare yourself. When men say, I'm just focused on my grind right now, it's always a lie in this specific context. So let's say it's been about a week and a half and he hasn't talked to you through text or even bothered to call. At this point, you're just exchanging a handful of texts per day, and you're beginning to become frustrated with the lack of effort he seems to be putting into building this relationship. So naturally, you decide to call him out on his lack of effort. And his response to you is, well, I'm not putting in any effort because I'm just so focused on my grind right now. Or as the kids would say, I'm locked in. Here's why this is such a tricky statement, because the fact that he's focused on his grind right now might not necessarily be a lie. The lie is making this statement as an excuse of why he's not putting any effort into the romantic relationship. Because whether or not he's focused on his grind, that doesn't affect his ability to be focused on building a romantic relationship. He can do both simultaneously if he really wanted to. The grind does not get in the way of a romantic relationship unless the man decides that the grind is allowed to get in the way of building a romantic relationship. Or in some cases, and I want you to buckle up for this because this is going to be scary to hear, he wasn't actually interested in building a romantic relationship in the first place, and he's using the grind as an excuse. And when you call him out, rather than admitting to you that he's putting in little to no effort because he has no interest in building a romantic relationship, he instead blames it on the grind so that you can believe that he actually wants to be with you, but his other priorities are getting in the way of being with you. And the reason it becomes such an amazing lie is because it makes him look like a hero for being so manly and focused on his goals and aspirations and striving for greatness. So it makes you feel like, well, I can't blame a man for having the desire to pursue his goals. I mean, that's what he's supposed to do as a man. So now, all of a sudden, when he feeds you this lie, you feel like the only appropriate response is to be understanding of the fact that his grind is so important that he can't actually put real effort into building a relationship. And then from that point forward, you convince yourself that him being on his grind is an acceptable excuse to be a bad partner to you. So the next time he's a no-show for a dinner date and he blames the fact that he's been at work grinding, now you have no choice but to accept the fact that this man's priorities can never seem to be you. Our next phrase that you need to be aware of because he's lying is, I'm just not a planner. I'm spontaneous. Now, let me tell you the context of this specific lie. Let's say you're noticing a guy is very last minute with you in anything that you're doing together. If you guys go out on a date, he's asking you an hour before the date. He's even pulling up to the restaurant, a busy restaurant, hoping that there will still be a magical reservation available. Everything is like spur of the moment, but it causes you to be constantly unprepared and disorganized in dating this guy because you feel like you're constantly running around with him to the next adventure. And so after a while, you let him know, hey, I would appreciate if we could plan more ahead of time so I can know what we're actually going to be doing. And then he responds with the lie. Well, I'm not really a planner. I'm just more spontaneous and adventurous. Planning's not really my strong suit, but let's look into why he's actually saying this to you. See, narratives are so important in relationships. And a lot of times, if a man is skilled at changing the narrative, he'll have you experiencing bad things, but perceiving them as good. This is a perfect example of that because when a guy is very last minute with you, but he tells you that it's because his character is one of adventure and spontaneity, now all of a sudden you don't see it as a reflection of how he respects you or his lack of respect for you. You see it as a character trait of a guy who has a fun and exciting life. With so much fun and excitement, he doesn't even know what he's gonna do in the next hour. And once he can convince you of this lie, he's got you exactly where he wants you. Because now, when he doesn't even bother to text you throughout the entire week, and then on Saturday night at 1:30 a.m., he calls you up and asks you to come over to his place because he just finished at the club, all of a sudden, you're convinced that this late night call is just another example of his quirky character traits that has him on an adventure all the time. Whee! So much fun. When you should have taken that late night call as extreme disrespect, especially considering the fact that he hasn't even bothered to reach out to you or speak to you the entire week. And it wasn't until he was drunk and horned up at the club that he remembered your phone number and decided to reach out to you. This next line is just so stupid. Honestly, it makes me laugh. When men say, I don't even find other women attractive, I can't stress to you how big of a lie this really is. I'm gonna tell you right now, when a man is single, he's attracted to women. If a man is in a relationship with you, he's still attracted to women. Don't ever let a man convince you otherwise because it's not true. Let me share with you the context that this will come under. You'll catch him on Instagram liking some girl's pictures. You'll say, that's kind of weird. This girl isn't one of his coworkers. They aren't friends. He really has no reason to even be on her profile. So when you confront him and you ask him, What's the reason you're liking this girl's pictures? Are you trying to get her attention? At this point, he completely ignores your question and chooses to respond by telling you how he's not even attracted to any other woman outside of you. But let's really think about, why is he making this statement? See, good manipulators understand when you confront them, if they overwhelm you with a bunch of conflicting emotions, you'll be so confused that you won't be able to properly address that person. When he tells you that he's not attracted to any other woman outside of you, it throws you for a loop. Because at the time when you confront him, you're angry at him, you're upset about the fact that he's liking this girl's pictures on Instagram. But the response he gave you actually makes you feel positive emotions, because he's making you feel special. He's making you feel like there's no other woman that's more beautiful and more attractive than you. He's making you feel like he's so focused on you and your beauty that he couldn't possibly fathom the idea of being with another woman. And when he says that, it speaks to your ego as a woman. You feel very validated by your man through that statement. And that validation that you feel is designed to neutralize the intensity of your anger. It's designed to confuse the direction of this conversation. Because when he tells you he's not even attracted to any other woman, you're not sure whether to ask him to follow up on that statement in order to feel more validated by him, or whether to ignore that statement and solely address the topic at hand, which is the girl's Instagram post that he liked. And here's why the lie is so good at this point in time. Because there's a high likelihood that if you're addressing him about liking another woman's posts on Instagram, there's a certain level of insecurity that you inherently feel within this relationship and his attraction to other women already. And him understanding that because of that insecurity, validating you in this specific way will be the most impactful to you at this particular time, which makes this lie even easier to fall for in the moment. Because when he tells you he's not attracted to any other girl except for you, it makes you feel like, keyword feel like, the action of him liking another woman's Instagram post is really nothing. Because no matter how many Instagram posts he does like, he'll never actually be attracted to any of those women. That's a lie. And even if he were to meet that woman in person, he wouldn't be able to actually have desire to be with that woman, because he doesn't have desire to be with any woman. Again, that's another lie. And all of this is supplying you with a false sense of hope that you are the one and only girl in his world. But the reality of it is, he just wants you to believe that so that you don't ask any more questions. This next phrase is one that most people who've been in a relationship have heard before. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to upset you. This lie comes under some very interesting context. Let me explain. So imagine you're home on a Saturday night and your man is at the club celebrating his boy's birthday. So you're texting him, asking him how the night is going, and he's telling you it's going pretty good. But you're also noticing that he's texting you a lot less frequently than he usually would when he goes out. You also notice that by the time he has gotten back home, when you check his location, it's been 2 hours since the club has closed. So the next day that you see him, you ask him about how that night went. He tells you, oh, well, it went fine. But you can tell by his strange energy something is off. So you continue to question him throughout the day until he finally admits to you that he was at the club with his boys. And while at the club with his boys, he saw his ex-girlfriend. And then, with your amazing detective skills, you ask him more questions and eventually realize not only did he see his ex at the club, but he also proceeded to have a conversation with her that lasted 2 hours outside of the club in her car. And when you ask him why he didn't tell you the entire time, he responds with this lie. I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want to upset you. Why would he tell you this right now? He doesn't want you to feel like he's actually keeping anything from you. Because if you felt like he's keeping something from you, you'd view him as someone who's sneaky and secretive, and that's a bad thing. So instead of looking sneaky, he wants to look heroic. In order for him to look heroic, he has to make it seem like it was his intention to tell you, that his intention was to do the right thing, come clean and tell you the absolute truth. But the only thing stopping him from being the most honest, straightforward person you've ever met is the fact that he cares so much about you and so much about your feelings and emotions, he couldn't possibly stomach the idea of telling you this horrible news. That you would hear this news and it would make you so sad and so upset. And because you're his precious little princess, he never in a million years would want to hurt. He just couldn't fathom the idea of telling you something that would hurt your teeny weeny innocent little princess soul. And so he decided to make the heroic decision to be your knight in shining armor and save you from this excruciating misery by deciding to hide from you the fact that he had a 2-hour-long conversation with his ex-girlfriend in the car outside of the club. And obviously, when I break it down like this, the logic just sounds very silly. But when you're hearing it from a guy that you have feelings for, you almost want to believe that it's true. You almost want to believe that nothing really happened and he's not actually hiding anything because he did technically tell you. And he definitely was correct in feeling like you would be very upset, especially if nothing really happened. It wouldn't make sense to want to make a situation out of a situation that wasn't really a situation if nothing really happened in the situation. And this is exactly why the lie is so effective. Because with this lie, he plays the role that you already are designed to want him to play. Because you want to believe in the idea that a guy cares for you so much, he's willing to sacrifice anything for you in order to spare your feelings. But in reality, this concept makes no sense. Because if he truly cared about you, he would tell you the truth about speaking with his ex outside of the club without you having to interrogate him in order to get that answer. And the fact that he didn't tell you until after you had to interrogate him tells you everything you need to know about why he did it. This phrase I personally dislike a lot because it really comes under the worst context. This phrase is when men say, if I wasn't with her, I'd be with you. Sounds very strange when I say it, but when you understand the context, it'll make so much more sense to you. Nobody likes to openly admit it, but I know for a fact based on all the private questions I receive. By the way, you can send me in a private question of your own and I'll answer it with a voice message. Just go and click my YouTube description. That there are a lot of women who end up dealing with men who are either married or in relationships. One of the things the men love to do in these situations when you are the other woman is say things to you that will make you feel better about the situation. So let's say you're dealing with a man at work who has a girlfriend, and when he's talking to you about this girlfriend and their relationship, he makes it sound as if it's the worst relationship anyone can ever experience. And he tells you how horrible she is, how unattracted to her he is, and as he sees that you're eating up his lies, he tells you the most impactful lie. He tells you that if he wasn't with her, he would rather be with you instead. And I know some of you are hearing this and going, who would ever fall for that? Ugh. When it's a guy you have feelings for and it's a guy you want to be in a relationship with, it's very easy to fall in love with those words, even though it's a complete lie. But let me tell you why he tells you this specific lie. He understands that as long as he continues to provide you with reasons to hope that one day you'll become the girlfriend or wife, then you'll likely continue to invest in him, hoping that one day your investment will pay off and you'll become his girlfriend or wife. So what does that look like on your end? Continuing to give him intimate access to your body, mind, soul, and spirit in a way that you would never do if you didn't feel like eventually it would all pay off. If he was honest with you and told you that he's never breaking up with his girlfriend or wife and you're never going to have an opportunity to have that number one spot, well, then you would never have any reason to be inclined to put your best foot forward trying to be the best other woman that you can possibly be. Hope is what keeps this relationship alive. As long as he can tell you lies that will keep your hope alive, he continues to be able to extract from you as much as he wants. And until you realize that this is a flat out lie meant to manipulate you, you will continue to allow yourself to be a resource that he can pull from. Because the reality of it is, he is never leaving that woman to be with you. He just wants to tell you lies that will make you feel like one day he might leave that woman. But what you must realize is that he likes you because you're the woman with so little self-respect that you allow him to have you while prioritizing a whole other woman. I absolutely love this phrase, not because it's good, but because men use it so often it's almost like a comical lie. It's when men say, I will change for you. Let me tell you right now, men will never change for you. They will only change for themselves. Specifically, they'll only change for themselves when they're experiencing enough pain that they feel that change is the only way to stop experiencing that pain. What do I mean by that? Let me provide you with context. Let's say you meet a guy and he loves going out to the club every single weekend and getting blackout drunk with his boys. You know a lifestyle like that is completely unsustainable for a happy, healthy relationship. And since you haven't been talking to this guy for more than a couple of months, you let him know that this lifestyle just isn't in line with yours, so you'd rather just go your separate ways. But before you move on, he pleads to you, please give me another chance. I promise I will change for you and stop going out every weekend and getting drunk. I quit. But why did he just say that? Because when you hear him begging and pleading to you, telling you how much he wants to be a better man for you, it does something to your ego. It makes you feel like, wow, I must be a special type of woman to be the woman that he wants to become better for. I must be his dream woman. He's ready to put away all these childish things and all these bad habits because of how badly he wants to be with me. So when he makes that statement, it actually makes you feel good about yourself, because in a way, he's kind of telling you that you are that woman. But like I said earlier, men don't change for you. They change to avoid the pain they feel when they're not getting what they want. Even if he makes some small changes and stops drinking for the next 2 weeks, the problem is when things get difficult, he doesn't have the internal motivation to push through this bad habit when things get difficult. Remember, he didn't do this for himself or to better his life. He did it for you. But now that he has you, where's the motivation going to come from for him to continue making that change? Especially when the desired result from making that change has already been achieved. He didn't stop going out with his friends and getting blackout drunk because he felt like he was wasting his life. He stopped going out with his friends and getting blackout drunk because he wanted to prevent you from leaving his life. So you're over here thinking that his desire to change is rooted in his desire to be with you, but his desire to change is really rooted in his desire to not let you walk away, because the pain that he will feel in experiencing having you walk out of his life is so unbearable that he would rather change something he never had any intention of changing just so that he can get you back into his life. But the moment he gets you back into his life, he no longer experiences the same pain. And because he's no longer experiencing the same pain, he has no reason to continue working on those bad habits. And after 2 weeks, you realize that the guy who said he would change for you really hasn't changed a single bit.